Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you Starly's new Northern Lights collection. It has been a hot minute since we saw a release from Starly. I believe the last one was their chronometry collection a year ago, but they are so back with this collection. It is super gorgeous. It's a 6-piece lineup that features 4 magnetic polishes, 1 shimmer, and 1 topper. So as always, I will save more of my thoughts for the end after comparisons. For now, let me just show you the swatches. First, we have Geomagnetic Storm Sights, which is described as a darkened green to teal to blue to purple multichrome shimmer with a blue to purple multichrome magnetic and gold reflective glitters. So it sounds like a lot is going on with this polish, but it's basically just 2 different multichrome pigments, one in the magnetic pigment and then one in the shimmer outside of it. So it just provides a lot of dimension. The formula on this was super smooth. It was just really easy to apply, very even coverage, and fully opaque in 2 coats. Here in extreme lighting, you can better see how the multichrome shimmers shift to purple. And I also wanted to include a clip under flash so you can kind of better see that golden reflective glitter. Though I will say it is more noticeable in the bottle than on the nail. And lastly, here it is applied with no effect on the left and with the velvet effect on the right. It looks so plush. I love how shifty this was. Next, we have Aurora Ignite, which is described as a darkened red base with green to gold and red to copper magnetic pigments. So I feel like the way that it's written makes it sound like there's 2 different magnetic pigments in here, but I personally don't see it that way. At least to me, it just looks like it goes from green to gold to red and then purple in more extreme angles, which you'll see soon enough. But either way, this one was also super gorgeous. I love the vampy blood red base color in this, and I found that it was very nicely pigmented, where again I only needed 2 coats, though I will say this definitely has a little bit more of that noticeable squishiness to the base. So if you do prefer doing thinner coats, you might need a 3rd one for this, but it's just so easy to work with and magnetize, especially with the velvet effect. It looked so glassy. The next polish is the only non-magnetic in the collection, and it's called Ethereal Nights. It's described as a blackened base with an intense green to teal to blue shifting shimmer. This one is so beautiful and mysterious. I love how inky and alluring it is, and just how the shimmer shines against the black base. I found that this one also had another amazing formula. It was very even, very pigmented on the first coat alone, though not quite a 1-coater. I would still recommend doing 2 coats for full opacity. So while it was kind of hard to see on camera, this does have a really beautiful shift to blue in extreme lighting. Next up, we have Oceanic Moonlight, which is described as a deep blue base with a blue to purple shifting shimmer and silver magnetic pigment. This one is absolutely breathtaking. Like, my jaw dropped doing this first coat and seeing how intensely saturated it was. It just absolutely glows like a brilliant sapphire. I just could not stop staring at this one, and if you couldn't tell already, this had another spectacular formula. It looked nearly full coverage on the first coat, so it was easily opaque in 2. The only thing that I will say is that I didn't notice that purple shift in the shimmer in this one. I think maybe the blue base kind of swallows it up a bit, because it also made the silver magnetic pigment look more aqua, which honestly is still gorgeous. And the last magnetic in the collection is Polar Lights, which is described as having a bright teal to blue to green shifting shimmer and a silver magnetic pigment. So I personally would say that this has more of like an icy blue-gray base color, and the shimmer is way more aqua or cyan than it is teal, but it definitely does have a strong greenish color too, so it sort of depends on like the lighting, I guess. Either way, this was another standout for me. It was the one I was immediately drawn to, especially since you might know I have just been lusting over these light or brightly colored magnetics. So this was an absolute beauty, and the formula on this was the same as the others in the collection. It was very easy to apply, very even coverage. This one obviously is the lightest of all the shades, so it is going to be the most sheer, where you might still see some nail line on 2 coats, but I think the shimmer is just so strong you really don't need a third. And rounding out the collection, we have Golden Starlight, which is a golden reflective glitter topper. So as you know, I still love me some reflective glitter, and I surprisingly didn't have just a plain gold topper, so I was really happy to see this one. I'm showing this in 1 coat over just my base coat, as well as over white and black, with and without flash, and of course over the rest of the collection. So personally, I think this shines the most over the darker colors because there's just more of that contrast. I especially loved it over Ethereal Nights and Oceanic Moonlight, and my least favorite combination was over Polar Lights, just because, I don't know, it's just such a light color that you can just visually see how gritty the reflective glitters are. And here's the collection worn as a skittle in 2 coats each with the cat eye effect. So I obviously have the 4 magnetics here. Hopefully you could better see that multi-chromatic shift in some of those. I really loved how shifty these were and how rich in color they were. Even the shimmer that's on my thumb was also very shifty. It's just kind of hard to see because of that black base. But overall, I thought this was just such a stunning collection, a beautiful color palette. I know a lot of people don't love magnetics, but I'm definitely a big fan, and I really enjoyed these. And of course, I did want to show them with Golden Starlight on top of them as well. I know a lot of people also don't love reflective glitters, but I think they're still super beautiful. Like, obviously they're gonna look very obnoxious under flash, but even in like direct sunlight, you can see this beautiful, shiny, reflective sparkle. So I thought this was just a beautiful topper to include with the collection. Now getting into comparisons, we're starting with Geomagnetic Storm Sights, and I was immediately reminded of Cracked Polish's Shut the Front Door, which I recently reviewed. That one isn't a magnetic, it's just kind of this dark teal shimmer, which does match the teal shimmer in Starrily, at least head on. Cracked does have a little bit of a shift to purple, but it's not nearly as multi-chromatic as Starrily is. So I was also reminded of ILNP's Deep Space, which in the bottle, these look like they could be dupes. They both have this like blackened base with this greenish blue shimmer that shifts to purple and this holographic sparkle. So seeing them unmagnetized, they could, you know, maybe pass for dupes, but once you do magnetize them, that's where you can really see the difference, because again, Starly has this extra multi-chromatic shimmer outside of just the magnetic pigment. So ILNP looks like a multi-chrome shimmer against a black base, but there's just more shiftiness going on in Starly. Then for Aurora Ignite, I wanted to quickly show it next to Mooncat's Your Heart's a Black Hole, which I thought was going to be close, but it's a little too light. So the closer shade is definitely Forbidden Fruit from the Pandora Unboxed collection. That has a slightly darker burgundy base color, and the shimmer is a little bit more green. And here it is next to Cirque's Eye of the Beholder, which is a little bit more of like a brownish red, like a maroon sort of color, with more of a coppery shimmer, not a gold green. So Forbidden Fruit is definitely the closest to Aurora Ignite, but I still wouldn't call it a dupe. Moving on to Ethereal Nights, the closest Starly shade that I had was Pluto, which funny enough is a magnetic, but that has a little bit of a brighter lime green kind of shimmer. And I also was kind of reminded of Mooncat's Drown My Demons, which looks like it has a very similar shimmer in the bottle, but that has a lighter kind of teal color, or at least lighter compared to the black base in Starly. So for a slightly darker option, I thought I could compare this next to Cracked Polish's Fight, which is also kind of a teal, but just darker than Drown My Demons. And I think the closest shade is probably ILNP's Salem, which is a black base with a green shimmer that also shifts to purple in very extreme lighting. So on paper, those two are definitely the most similar, but I would say that the shimmer is a little bit stronger in Starly. It just seems finer and maybe more densely packed, and it definitely shines a little bit more, especially in more extreme lighting. Moving on to Oceanic Moonlight, I knew I had to show this next to Mooncat's House of Hades, which is another intensely bright cobalt kind of blue. That one is a micro flaky though, and it has more of this purple indigo base. So I thought to maybe layer Cirque's chemistry on top to recreate Starly, but it doesn't really compare. I did also want to quickly show this next to Mooncat's Curiosity's Trap, which is another blue magnetic, but that one's a little bit darker and dustier. As far as closer color comparisons go, I would say that Crack's Nuclear Coolant from their Halloween collection is pretty close. And then from ILNP, I have Sea Glass, which is from a couple of summers ago. That looks like it has more of a flaky instead of a shimmer particle. And while it looks incredibly similar on camera to Starly, it's not an exact dupe because there are some of these like teal flakies in ILNP. So they're close, just not dupes. Then for polar lights, I knew I had to show this next to ILNP's Flashing Lights from the Electric Summer collection. That's another bright blue with a silver magnetic shimmer, but they definitely are not dupes. I would say that ILNP is a little bit darker, and it also just has this orange shimmer instead of the cyan in Starly. I was also reminded of other shades like Holo Taco's Happily Ever Aqua from the Birthstones collection. Even though that's like an aqua linear holo, I just thought maybe the color was kind of close. But I think an even closer color maybe is Mooncat's Catfished, which has a totally different formula, being this like very tiny micro flaky, but I do think it is the closest to that like super intense cyan minty aqua color. I would say that Mooncat is a little bit more sheer too. I'm wearing 2 coats of each. And lastly, for Golden Starlight, I wanted to quickly show this next to Cracked Polish's Truly Outrageous, which is a golden micro hollow glitter polish, so not reflective. The closest to a dupe that I have is CX Polish's Fallen Stars, which does have gold reflective glitters, but it also has gold holographic glitters, which give it this additional rainbow twinkle that isn't present in Starly. So not an exact dupe, but definitely close enough. I'm pretty sure other brands like Fancy Gloss have a straight up gold reflective topper though. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Starly's Northern Lights collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on this release because if it isn't obvious, I think these are amazing. I love the inspiration behind them, but even the polishes themselves are just so freaking gorgeous. I know magnetics are kind of like divisive nowadays because they admittedly can be very time consuming to get like a full magnetic manicure, but I would argue that these are so worth it because they just have really great formulas, and more importantly, the colors are just so beautiful. Like I mentioned in the video, the 2 blues are easily my favorites from this collection, but I would love to know which one is your favorite. These are already available on Starly's website, so I will have that linked in the description box, but even if you don't plan on getting anything, I would just love to know your thoughts on these down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!